Hey guys, welcome back to What's Inside. Today will be episode 6, part 2 of dissecting an RC car. Today we'll be dissecting this remote. The remote sends the signals to the car, which allows it to either steer or move forward and back. Now let's get to the disassembly. The tools we'll be using go back to our trusty wedge that we use for every video in order to pry open the little cracks. And then we're going to use a screwdriver to screw open the screws. And then finally, we're going to use this flat wedge screwdriver to pry open the remote control along with the wedge. As you can see here, we have finally disassembled all parts of this remote. Now onto the parts overview. So from the beginning, we have these two little plastic coverings. These two are important to ensure the PCB inside stays protected, while the screws over here hold it together in place. For example, holding these two together and anchoring the PCB onto the case. And then we have this little black piece right here. This little black piece goes on top of the antenna that sends signals, and as you can see, it protects the antenna while allowing the signals to transfer through. And then we have the battery pack. The battery pack holds both of the batteries that are necessary to supply power to the entirety of the remote. And overall, it snaps together like this while the batteries go in here in the back.
And then we have the battery pack cover, which essentially protects the batteries from external factors such as water, etc. And then finally, we have the PCB, which is the most important part of the remote control, and we'll get more in depth about it later. Onto the PCB. So as you can see, there are a lot of pieces and buttons, LEDs, antenna, and then also on the back we have a lot of components. But firstly, we have the LED, which goes right here, and every time you press one of these buttons, it's an indicator to tell you if the controller is working or if it's on. And then next we have the antenna, which basically every time you click moving forward, moving back, moving side to side with the steering, it will send the signals to the car, which in turn will allow the car to either drive forward or move side to side. And finally, we have these buttons over here. As you can see in the cover, we have this and this. Every time you use the button to either steer or move forward and back, it will effectively press the push buttons, which will send information to the IC, and in turn this will allow the car to do whatever you want it to do.
And now moving on to the back side of the PCB, if you look closely at this little black piece right here, that's the IC, the integrated circuit. And if you look closely, all of the copper wiring on the PCB goes back to the IC, which shows how important it is because it's the brains of everything. Like when you press a button, it sends a signal to the IC. When you press this button, it also sends the same signal to the IC. And even everything including the antenna sends a signal back to the IC because it's the brains of the board. And well, if you look at the other stuff too, there's just your normal capacitor, resistor, inductor. Those just do the same thing to regulate current flow because as you can see here, the batteries are pretty large, and the PCB here is pretty small. Like, not a lot of electricity is needed, so the inductor will regulate the electricity flow to properly accommodate the correct current. And same with the resistors and the capacitors. Those are more fine-tuning for current. And then one last thing is that the inductors also smooth out some high-frequency noise. For example, like the signal that has to be sent out through the antenna has to be pretty clean for the car to receive it and for it to effectively work. And that way, the signal that is sent from the IC to the antenna has to go through an inductor to smooth out some of the extra stuff, to smooth out some of the noisy stuff in order for the signal to be smooth and to effectively trigger the car. On to the reassembly.
As you can see, this remote control is finally reassembled.
And that's a full disassembly and reassembly of this remote. We hope you enjoyed this episode of What's Inside, this two-part episode on the RC car. Hopefully you found something interesting. And make sure you tune in for the next episode where we dissect a keyboard. Remember to always stay curious, and that's what's inside. Thank you for tuning in to this episode.